When you're in court facing off against a debt collector, what kind of documents do you need and how do you get them so that you can use them to their greatest effectiveness? My name is Mike Waslick. I'm one of the lawyers at Ricardo and Waslick here in Florida. Together with my partner Jason Ricardo, when debt collectors give you hell, we help you give it back. And today I'm going to tell you how to use documents that you can easily obtain. I'm going to tell you how to keep them, how to save them, and how to use them most effectively so that when you're in court with a debt collector, you can turn the tables and make their lives hell instead of them doing that to you. So let's begin. Depending on what your situation is, there are three types of documents you may be looking to use to defend yourself against a debt collector in court or to use against a debt collector when you've taken them to court. Those three types of documents are communications, they are credit reporting, and anything filed in court. So for communications, they're going to be things like letters, emails, text messages, maybe even phone logs. For credit reporting, they're going to be the credit reports themselves, any letters you've got related to your credit, and also your own account records, bank accounts and account statements. And then the third area is court action. If there's any kind of court action going on, anything that you think the debt collector's done wrong, we're going to talk about how you can use those documents against them. So let's dive into communications. First and most commonly, you're going to be dealing with letters to and from debt collectors. One of the reasons we recommend using U.S. mail to communicate with a debt collector is because it's easy for the Postal Service to track when you've mailed something and when the other side gets it. So it's really common that you're going to want to use letters from the U.S. mail in court. Now, when you're trying to use a letter as evidence, you want to make sure that you have the original letter or the closest thing to it, the closest copy you have, as your primary mode of evidence. That means a clean copy. That means you don't have anything handwritten on it. That means you don't have any notes or highlights or anything that's a distraction from the original letter itself. If you've taken any notes, if you've highlighted anything, then there's going to be a question about whether or not the document was altered, and that's going to distract from the point you're going to be trying to use that letter for. So make sure it's a clean copy. If you've got a letter that's already got some writing on it, don't make it worse. Don't try to alter it any further. Just leave it alone and do nothing but make additional copies of it. If you need to make notes about a letter, do it on a separate sheet of paper and paper clip them together. Now, when you're saving a copy of a letter, you'll either want to make just a regular photocopy or you're going to want to make a full page scan to PDF. What you don't want to do is try to use your phone to take a picture of a document. That's going to look really bad. It's going to be really hard to read, and it's going to be hard for you to make copies that you can use in court. What you want to do instead is make that full page PDF scan, either on a flatbed scanner or in some cases, your phone may have an app that lets you scan documents to a full page PDF. Now, once you've got those full page PDFs or full page photocopies, you're going to take each letter and then sort them by the date that they were sent or received. And if you want to use green cards, like if you mailed something certified mail, return receipt, and you've got the original green card, you want to use that original green card if you can. And if you need to make photocopies, again, use a full page scanner or use the scanner app on your phone, or you can take it to a place like an Office Depot or a Staples and ask them to make copies for you. And if you're using that kind of receipt, you want to make sure to attach it with a paper clip to the letter that it refers to. Now let's talk about emails. There's two ways you can capture an email in order to use it in court. First, you may want to just print it straight to printer. When you do that, make sure you print the full email and make sure that each email is its own printout. So if you've got a bunch of emails and replies in one long email chain, you're going to want to go to each original email in your email system and print out that individual email. Make sure to capture the entire email so that it's very clear the date and time, what was being said, by whom and to whom. And if the email has an attachment, you'll want to open that document, print it out separately, make sure that you paperclip that to the email it was attached to so you can know what document is being transmitted by what email. Now, if you're in a position where you want to save these electronically, you can print an email to PDF. Most computers will let you do that. Make sure that you've got the full email in the PDF printout. Make sure that you save any attachments that are on that email. You can open those up and print those to PDF as well. Most computer systems, most email systems will let you do that. When you are printing something to PDF, make sure you set your computer or your email system so that the printout scales the image so the entire thing fits on one page. You don't want to have stuff cut off at the edges or on the margins. Now let's talk about text messages. If you get a text message from a debt collector or you sent a text message to a debt collector, you're going to want to get a clear, clean copy of that text message from your phone. Almost every phone lets you use a screen capture to capture the image that's on your telephone screen. Usually on an iPhone, it's going to be by pressing the buttons on the opposite sides of the phone, and that will capture whatever is visible on the screen. Now, when you are capturing text messages, you'll want to make sure that you get a very clear image of what the date and time it was sent. If it's a very new text message, it's going to say something like today or yesterday or Wednesday. Only messages that are older than a week are going to have the actual date and time on them. So it might make sense to wait a few days so that the actual date and actual time appear in your text message system. And if possible, you want to try and capture in that image the contact information or the telephone number that the text message is coming from. So just to recap, you want to start with the first text message and then work your way down the series so that you've got every text message in the chain. You want to make sure that the dates and times are reflected, not just something like yesterday or Friday, and also if possible you want to capture the phone number that that text message was sent to you from. Once you've got those images, you can usually save them to your computer, print them out, use them, and the last type of communication you're going to want to document is either a phone call or a voicemail that you receive from a debt collector. Most cell phones are going to have a call log that records every incoming and outgoing phone call, so you'll be able to take a screenshot of that and then save it to the photos on your phone. And then once you've got those, again, you can save those images to your computer, you can print them out, you can use them. So you want to make sure to get a screenshot of every time a debt collector tried to call you and the phone number they were coming from and the date and time. That's going to be captured in every image you take. And then also, every time that you have called them, you'll want to make sure that that is reflected in your call log as well. Almost every modern cell phone does that and will let you take a screenshot of that. Now, what about voicemails? It's the same thing. Most modern cell phones are going to let you do two things. First of all, you can get a screen capture of the time and date that voicemail was left on your phone, and many phones will actually give you a transcript of what was said in the voicemail. You can get a screen capture of that too. And number two, most modern cell phones are going to let you save a copy of the audio file itself, and that can be very powerful because there's few things as persuasive as hearing a debt collector break the law on a recording that they left on your own phone. So if you're going to use an audio file in court, you're going to want to talk to the court staff in advance, well in advance of any court hearing date, so that you know exactly what you need to do, what type of file you need to bring in order to make sure that everyone can hear it. That's sometimes why having a transcript is also really important. Now let's talk about the second category of documents you might be looking to use against a debt collector: court action. Any kind of court paper that they've submitted that might contain a falsehood or might be evidence of their other law breaking. You'll want to use that in your own court case. Even if it's from a different court case, you'll want to use that in the new court case to show whatever violation you think is going on. Now, for most court cases, if you were a party, you would already have gotten copies of those either electronically or by mail. Ideally, you've saved those just the same way we've talked about saving emails, just the same way we've talked about saving letters. But if you don't have a copy of a court paper for a court case that you were involved in, you can get it from the clerk of court. Because you're the party, you have a right to anything that's involving a case you were in. And as long as it's not so old they've already destroyed the files, which is pretty rare nowadays, the court is almost always going to have an electronic record of the papers that were filed in your court case. You can get those from the clerk. You may even be able to get those online. Florida courts have something called the Online Court Records Search System, and that will allow you to log into the clerk of court website, select the case that you were a part of, and click on a document that was filed with the court so that you can get it. Now, when you have those, again, you're going to want to save those to PDF. You want to print those out so that the entire image fits on the page, and you'll want to make sure certain things are importantly reflected on there. You want to make sure that the name of the court case is there, so Smith v. Jones. You'll want to make sure that the case number is there, and also which court it was from. So if there was a court case, Smith v. Jones, number 25 CC 1234 in Pasco County Court. And again, at least in Florida, most court systems will have some kind of e-filing number. They'll have a date and time they were filed with the court, and that's going to make it easier for you to prove who did what and when. So what you're going to be looking for in those court documents is any time a debt collector made a false statement about the debt. Let's say they made a misrepresentation about the amount of the debt, or the status or the character of the debt. Let's say they lied about it being a consumer versus a commercial debt, or they lied about it being overdue when it really wasn't. Those are the types of things that are violations that you're going to use to prove against them. And you may be able to use court documents to prove other types of violations. So for example, if they sued you in a place that you don't live and you have no other connection to, and that's why it's important for you to get the court document that shows which court it was filed in, because if they sued you in the wrong county, for example, that's almost always going to be a violation. Now, this third category of documents that might be really important to you is going to be for credit reporting. And what you're going to be looking for is in that credit report for a specific debt collector's account, you're going to want to look for any kind of misstatement, whether it's the balance of the debt, whether it's the character or status of the debt, whether it's owed or consumer versus commercial or past due or not past due, any kind of misstatement about the dates and times of payments or non-payments, or to whom the debt was originally owed or who it's owed to now. Any of those misstatements might be a violation of federal law, and that's why it's going to be really important to prove not only what the statement was, but why it's false. So the first and most important thing you're going to want to pull is your credit report itself. You're going to look at that credit report and find that debt collector statement on your credit report. And that means third-party sources like Credit Karma or credit monitoring services, while they may be useful to alert you that there may be a problem, aren't going to be useful to you as evidence because they are hearsay. So you need the actual original credit report. That's why we recommend going to annualcreditreport.com and pulling those electronically. You're going to find that we have a video on our channel that talks about how to pull those reports and how to save them so that you can use them. I'm going to put a link to that video in the description. Now, when you get your credit reports, please make sure that if you save them to PDF, you'll want to make sure that when you print to PDF that your computer is set to scale the image so 100% of the image appears on the page. If it's cut off, and again, TransUnion reports often do this, it cuts off the most important part of the information, making the entire document unusable. Make sure that when you print the PDF, you get the entire image on the single page. Now that you've got the original credit reports, you've looked through them and you found the debt collector statement that you think might be wrong, you're going to want to also back it up with documents of your own. You're going to want to use your own documents to prove that those statements are false. Now, what kind of documents are you going to look for? You're going to want to find your original account statements for the original creditor account, and you're going to want to find your own bank statements. And if a debt collector has sent you any letters or emails or text messages stating the amount or anything else about that, you'll want to take a look at those too. Now, you're going to want to get your bank statements that show the times and amounts of any payments you've made on the account, compare those to your credit report, and see if the credit report and the bank statements that you have line up with when you think payments were made and how much they were made. And then you're going to do the same thing with your account statements from the original account itself. You want to line those up, compare them with your bank statements and compare them with the credit reports, and see if the debt collector is making a false statement about the amount you owe, the amount of the payments, the timing of the payments, or any missed payments. And for your bank statements and account statements, you may have those in paper form, you may have those in electronic form, and the same thing applies to those statements as we talked about in letters and emails. You'll want to make sure that those are full-page PDFs so that the full image is shown on the page. If they're paper photocopies, you want to make sure that those are full copies. You want to make sure those are clean copies that are free from any notes or highlighting that might lead somebody to claim that the documents have been altered. And if you're missing any statements, you want to go back to the source and see if you can get those statements that are missing. For your bank, you may be able to get those for the last 7 years. Most of them keep those. If your original creditor account is still accessible to you, you may be able to download those online or even send in a request directly by mail. So you want to sort those out by type. You'll want to put bank records in one place, you'll want to put account records in another place, and then your 3 credit reports in another place, and then go through each of them and cross-reference them to make sure that the statements are consistent across the board, because if they are not, that's when you are likely to have a violation. Now, to present those in court, you're going to want to identify a specific statement or statements made by the debt collector in your credit report, identify what statement is false, and then select the document or documents that help you prove the conflict between the debt collector's credit reporting and the actual reality of when and how much you made a payment or how much you owed. You may need only 1 month worth of statements, or you may need multiple months depending on exactly what kind of inaccuracy you're claiming exists. And that's the 3 categories of documents that you are likely to have in your own possession. I'm going to very quickly talk about documents you might be able to obtain from the other side. If you're in small claims court in Florida, the right to discover documents from the other side is limited, but you do have a right to advance copies of anything that they're going to try to use against you in court. Sometimes those will be attached to the complaint against you. If you're in a different court, you might have more full rights to discovery, disclosure of documents. That's going to require you to follow court rules very precisely. And if you're dealing with an amount that large, you're going to want to think more carefully about whether or not it makes sense for you to do yourself or bring in a lawyer who can help you get the documents you need. If you haven't gone to court yet but think you will in the future, you might still have time to send a dispute letter. We've done a lot of videos about that on the channel. I'm going to recommend you go to the channel and search for videos that talk about dispute letters and their timing and what you can get in return. Documents that you might get include account statements and other evidence of the debt. That may be something that's useful to you in your court hearing with your debt collector. And now you know what kind of documents you might get, how to gather them, and how to use them in court. And you might be asking yourself, what do I use them for? What am I trying to prove? So I want you to watch the video I'm going to put on screen now. It's going to talk about the types of things you might be using in court when you're facing a debt collector to try and flip the tables on them and make it so that they owe you instead of the other way around. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.